Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Hi, Anne. Good to see you. I'll talk to... Is he coming to the com board?
Can I change that to the beginning?
Okay, we'll talk about her. Anne, she's all yours, mate.
Kia ora koutou, ko Anne Scott Taguingwa. I'm here to talk on behalf of Spokes, Canterbury. Down, please. So in terms of cycle priorities that Spokes would like to see is we'd like to see the major cycle routes finished, new connections to popular destinations, including schools, cycling in the centre city enhanced, and more safe bike parking. One of the issues I'll talk about later is widening paths and parks, which are a really good way to get around and outside of traffic, but they're being put in too narrow at the moment. Safer intersections and crossing for cyclists and pedestrians, increased space at high demand intersections where the number of cyclists is now greater than the space available, and reducing speeds. Next, please. So cycling is continuing to grow. In the census, 6% of people cycle to work, and that doesn't include schools or the university where over 20% of the students are biking to university. So there are really good stats here, continuing to grow. In Q1 2025 is up on Q1 2024. So it's actually a really good story for Christchurch. And just recently we had the Can Do here, and we took a lot of people from around the country on some of our cycle networks, and they were really impressed with what we've got. I think people like us, we see the gaps, and sometimes we have to really appreciate the really good stories that are there as well. Economic benefits of cycling is well known: health, reduced congestion, safety, and reduced climate emissions and pollution. Next, please. So we agree with the annual plan cycling priorities for 2025-2026. The Te Aratai cycle connection, particularly for the school, the Simeon Street upgrades, the Antigua upgrades, the South Express, Te Kaha Streets improvements, and we'd also like the Wheels to Wings to be built. What Spokes doesn't support is increased speed. We can't see any point in paying money to increase the speeds again, because sooner or later we're going to decrease them again. And we would also like to the council to challenge further KiwiRail's gold-plated crossings and safety requirements. We could save a lot of money in the 2025-2026, and I think someone worked it out, it was 60 million in the budget to look at KiwiRail's requested enhancements. And that they're just not the top priority for safety for cycling in Christchurch. I'd just like to say what we really want to see is actually better funding of projects for 2026-27. They're almost missing. The funding is there for projects we've already agreed on in the past year, but the future is looking pretty grim in our current budget. Each improvement is bringing new cyclists and attracting new people to Christchurch because of our infrastructure. Next, please. So this was something that was in the press in October 2024, and what it took the people who are driving in suburbs in Christchurch versus the people who are cycling. And what we want to see is that green arrow go down to the right. So we should be looking at some of those. So we have a unevenly distributed infrastructure in Christchurch. So that 6% hides a range of 2 to 20% in the people travelling by bike to work. And there are some places that have great infrastructure and you're seeing a big increase in the number of cyclists, and there are some places who are really struggling and don't have the safe infrastructure. And because they're struggling, they have high driving needs as well. So if we can actually move people down that arrow to more cycling, less cars, it would be cheaper and safer for everyone. So, and it all depends on the connections and the attractiveness of the network. And we need good transport alternatives. Next, please. So we've talked about the big cycleways, but actually small cycleways can make a very big difference. There are unsafe gaps, and one of the best examples is Northcote Road. There's 700 metres between the QE2 path and the Northern Line, and there are 4 high schools, and every day you see kids biking down there, taking their life in their hands. And so this is a really good example of a small gap that would make a huge difference. We need to improve high-use cycle intersections and conflict areas, like Deans Ave and Matai Street and Tigua Morehouse and the I've put Boathouse Bridge there, but you know what I mean. It's the one by the hospital. It's really getting too full and too much conflict. We've also got to look at road crossings for cyclists and pedestrians because they make a difference as well. Sometimes it's safe to bike on the streets, and then you come to this road, which is a major arterial, and there is no safe way across. And one of the good examples of that is Milton Street and Simeon Street. And the other one that keeps coming up, people keep talking to spokes about, is the Carton Mill Bridge and the intersection of trying to get from the north of the city into the park, into Hagley Park. And another issue is enforcement. There are people parking in the cycle lanes. I just come down Antigua Street on the bike, and there are 3 cars sitting in the cycle lane waiting for people to pick up. And it's just unacceptable. And also there are red light running, particularly in mid-block pedestrian cycle lights. These are not in the intersections, these are the mid-block ones that are especially. We need to do something before someone is killed. And most of those are at schools. Next, please. Cycle parking is the other thing. So we actually need, there's a lack of suitable cycle parking, and it's increasingly a barrier to cycling. A lot of people are buying expensive e-bikes. They would cycle into town, but they can't find anywhere to park anymore. A cycle stand in store costs $2,000, and I think $35,000 or something like that for a car park. Centre city cycle parks are getting full. Most sports parks and playgrounds have no or very poor cycling structure. And many council facilities also have poor wheel bending options, including the Fenelton Library, which has a sign which says, beware, your bike will get stolen, lock it. To what? Event parking is getting better, but every high-use venue should have a permanent bike parking, even the circus. And there should be an appropriate space for cargo and non-standard bikes. So what Spokes is recommending is that you add to the budget a minor works budget item called cycle parking of $50,000 for 3 years. And that would make a big difference to the number of people who are cycling in the city. Next, please. We have thought about cheaper cycling infrastructure. We would like the council to separate the budget for underground services upgrades from cycleway infrastructure, because sewage is not cycleways. And it does mean that you have this backlash from community for very high expenses in cycleways that are not actually cycleways. They're things like coal tar and other things that they might find under the road. We're on top of the road. More connectors and temporary cycleways like the Park Terrace. Park Terrace is working really well, although it does worry me the number of those black bollards that are getting damaged, but it is a cheap way of doing it. Have more flexibility for the type of green paint you use. I understand that's really expensive. And the cheapest way of all to make cycling safer is to reduce speeds to 30k an hour. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we've got Tyler, please.
G'day, Anne. I just wanted to ask about the Deans Ave crossing, the Unilink.
Yes.
Are you saying that it needs to be upgraded in terms of the infrastructure, or you just want it to be more visible?
It means widening. There's too many cyclists waiting there to get across, and it's too narrow to get across.
Got you.
Yeah, both sides. Both sides.
Yeah, you cheeky bugger. It's outside Girls High, so it's different.
Any
Absolute
other,
demon, eh?
Aaron? Yep.
Yeah, and just on some of the data, like with the census, it said 6% cycle to work. That's not including schools and universities. But I thought with the census, everyone does it. So if you did cycle to school or uni, then you put down your cycle that day, or you drove, or you did whatever.
No, it specifically says to work. To work.
Oh, so let's say you're on the dole, but you biked everywhere or drove everywhere. What does that mean?
You're not counted.
Oh, okay. So then, because the household survey data doesn't read as well, that's 4.3% cycle 20 times a month. So that's 5 days a week.
Yes.
Is only 4.3%. So that's not as good as the census data, which didn't include the schools and university.
Yeah, that's true.
So any reason, do you think, for the... which one would you believe
I think
more?
it really depends. Which one do I believe more? I think the census, because the census has more of a push to get everyone to actually say what they're doing.
Okay. I hope you make a submission to the census to get a better question, because it'd be good to get better info on that. And then the other one is...
and they've said no, because we want to compare it for 20 years.
Okay. And then the other one is the cycle counts trending upwards starts at 0. Is that because that's the start of the cycle counters? That's cycle counter data only, not cycle counts.
Yes, it's cycle counter data only. So it actually really only includes the sort of the major counters.
Yep.
So if you, and we're starting to see the network extend further out where there are no counters. So it's massively undercounting the number of people who are actually cycling.
Okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Rightio, yeah, and thanks very much, Anne, coming in. Good. Righto, we've got